How we feeling, Noles fans? 1-0 after beating the LSU Tigers for the second year in a row. This time leaving no doubt as the Florida State Seminoles imposed their will and beat LSU 45-24. Now we'll be doing a reaction video to a lot of the other games from week 1, especially our rivals games. And I know I'm a little late on this one, but man, that LSU game, it's been a long time since FSU fans have witnessed a game like that. That wasn't Georgia Tech, it wasn't Syracuse, that was a top 5 ranked team that won the SEC West last year. Now, I had us winning this game, and I even said it would be due to the passing game, but I didn't even remotely expect what we got. Florida State went out and thumped a top 5 SEC team by essentially 28 points. I know the final score had FSU only winning by 21, but that last touchdown from LSU was in the final minutes of the game where FSU had backups on the field. And I'll say that again. Florida State had their backups on the field against top 5 ranked LSU. What a statement to be made by Mike Norvell, Jordan Travis, and really the entire program. What's even more fascinating is that FSU played a pretty rough first half and still went into halftime only down by 3 to then make the proper adjustments and come out with 31 unanswered points in the second half. They scored points every time they had the ball in the second half. The Noles didn't just win by 1 point like they did last year. Even with a mediocre first half, they blew out a top team and left absolutely no doubt. This wasn't a fluky win. This wasn't luck. It was pure domination in that second half. LSU players had clearly given up with 10 minutes or so still left in the game. Jordan Travis goes 23 of 31 for 342 yards and 5 touchdowns with 1 interception. My man Keon Coleman went absolutely nuts, hauling in 3 touchdown catches for 122 yards. And it's obvious and very deserving why he got to break the rock and cut the sod for this one. I mean, what an excellent performance out of him the other night. It's a real shame we only get 12, maybe 13, 14, 15 games of that. Johnny Wilson had over 100 yards receiving as well, but Johnny, I love you, man, but I need you to work on them drops. I won't dwell on it too much because Johnny's came up clutch in multiple times, but sheesh. The running game was subtle but effective, especially at key moments. Between Jordan Travis, Trey Benson, Rodney Hill, and Lawrence Toafili, we still produced over 130 yards on the ground. Now the defense, especially that defensive line. Such a dominant performance, including 2 major 4th down stops. This defensive line is legit, and Fabian Love didn't even play all that much. We also didn't have a chance to see Darrell Jackson either, as we're still waiting on his waiver to get approved, which hopefully happens sooner rather than later. But man, I mean, all of them had a really good night. Fisk looked good. Farmer showed that he's taken a real leap into what we thought he would be. Of course, Verse looked like his normal top 10 pick self, but even the linebackers had a really solid night. Tatum Bethune in particular had a very underrated performance, including that massive hit stick on Jaden Daniels. And there's just really too many guys to name all of them individually. I mean, Hakeem Williams showed off some good blocking skills. Jaheim Bell, despite a bad drop, had a couple really nice plays and a couple touchdowns. DJ Lundy had a sack at a crucial spot in the game. Renardo Green had a pick at a crucial spot in the game. Really, this whole team looked incredibly solid, especially in that second half. First half was a bit shaky. There was quite a few penalties, even though some of those were just ridiculous. The officiating on Sunday night was absolutely horrible. But the team themselves just kind of looked like they were pressing from the first drive. Jordan was forcing too many things, making some poor decisions, and even threw a pretty bad interception after LSU muffed yet another punt and let Florida State get the ball back. The secondary seemed to bit off as well. Some missed assignments and guys not quite reading the field as well as they should. This obviously got better in the second half, but I still think there's room for improvement there. All in all, you can likely credit a lot of this to just first game nerves and jitters and kind of shaking the rust off from the offseason. I expect a lot of it to be cleaned up as the season goes on. My main takeaways from this game, and man, there's a lot of them. For starters, Keon Coleman is the truth and will likely be a first-round pick in the next draft if he keeps it up like this. Second of all, the Jordan Travis Heisman hype is real, and it's only going to grow from here on out. He went 23 of 31, but that doesn't really account for about 4 pretty bad drops from his receivers. I love that he's turned himself into more of a pass-first quarterback. I know some people, even myself, get a little bit annoyed or impatient when he won't just bail out of the pocket and use his legs. But this offense really wants to set up the passing game, and this only preserves Jordan Travis's health. Next up, this defensive line is a top unit in the country. Outside of that 140-ish yard run from their running back in the first half, LSU's run game was essentially non-existent. Of course, Jaden Daniels rushed for like 65 yards, but that's just kind of what he does. And this is the other point I tried to make to people, because at halftime, fans were kind of losing it and once again calling for Adam Fuller's job. But guys, this was a top 5 team with a Heisman candidate at quarterback who is throwing to yet another top 10 receiver. They're going to just make plays. No matter how good your defense is, the top 5 team in the country makes plays. So holding them to essentially 17 points is a huge win, and it's definitely good enough for our offense to kind of name their number and pull out the dub. But it needs to be mentioned how dominant this defensive line was, making not one but 2 goal line stands at crucial points in the game. Especially that first drive for LSU. Standing tall there and forcing them to turn over on downs is a tone setter. Of course, this game was won in the trenches. If LSU scores there, it may swing momentum in a whole different direction. But even outside of the defensive line, Renardo Green had a pick. The defense had 4 sacks. I mean, just all around a very, very good showing from these guys. Yes, we would like to see corners play a little bit tighter, but again, I think that's something that we see improve as the season goes on. After watching that second half, all I can think about is, goodness, what if this team could do that for 4 quarters straight? And if they could, I'm not seeing a team that could stop this offense. I'm not ready to buy a ticket to Pasadena just yet, but we caught a glimpse of a dominant elite football team. All of a sudden, that Clemson game doesn't seem so daunting. And looking at the rest of the schedule, I know we have a road game at Pitt and then going to Florida at the end of the year, but I'm having a hard time finding a reason this team can't go 12-0. One thing is for sure, Jordan Travis is a real contender for the Heisman, and Florida State is a real contender for the playoffs. But what a phenomenal weekend of football. What a statement for FSU to do what they did, how they did it. I mean, that was such a fun game to watch. And it was a game all of us Florida State fans needed and deserved after these last several years. Now let's stay healthy, run the table, and as always, guys, like, subscribe, and let's talk Noles.